So everybody knows the co-host has muted everyone except for me. If you would like to communicate, ask questions, please do so in the chat. I also mentioned if you are viewing from anywhere other than Georgia today, please type it in the chat. We love to keep track of who all sees us. I've been told that people in other states tune in and watch, so we would love to know that. If you hear me just kind of offhand talking to someone or asking someone a question or someone is telling me something, it's because I have Lisa, our program assistant, helping me. She's recording this and monitoring all of this. So if she needs to tell me something, that's what that is. If someone at the end in person asks a question, I will listen to them ask it and I'll repeat it so everybody online can hear. We do have approximately, 10-ish people here in person, so there will be a little back and forth. Okay, so with that said, welcome to Growing Successful Succulents and Cacti. And just take a look at this picture. I think they're so beautiful. There's such a variety of colors. You know, when I was growing up, I was never really interested in cacti and actually not really into succulents. I don't think it was as big of a thing maybe 20, 30 years ago, but now it has really, really grown and you'll find everything in every color pretty much. Okay, why is it not advancing? Okay. And then here is just a list of my Houseplant Academy dates. So this is the April 10th Succulents and Cacti. I've got one more for this season. It's Gardening with Moss, and that's on May 8th. And then we have a couple of months off from Houseplant Academy for the summertime. A lot of people are really busy outdoors in their gardens or they're traveling, and it doesn't seem to be a big sit in front of your computer time for people. So, or houseplant time for people, unless you like to dote on them then too. So please register for the Gardening with Moss, and then we'll be back in August. I'm doing something a little bit different from what I've done so far. We're going to do a book club review. So we're going to go over Doug Tallamy's new book. How Can I Help is the title of it, basically bringing nature or saving nature in your own backyard. And you don't have to read the book. If you would like to, that would be great. You can maybe participate or ask some questions. If you don't have time or don't want to read it, this is for you too, because you can just tune in and get the highlights from me. And we're going to have a special guest with UGA, the conservation horticulturist Heather Talley, who works at the State Botanical Gardens, will be talking to us. She's native plants is everything she does, so she'll be able to answer questions. I also wanted to plug the Southeast Plant Show. This is not something that's put on by Extension, but Extension will have a booth there. We'll have master gardeners staffing this. And if you've been attending any of my houseplant academies, you obviously have some interest in houseplants. Let me tell you, this is the place to be. Even if you're not buying, if you just want to look around, there's lots of eye candy. Please go and please stop by our Extension booth. It's really something not to be missed. If you want to see some amazing plants by some really amazing growers, please join us. Okay, so let's dive in. Today I've got my little camera on myself because I've got plants with me here in the conference room, and I'd like to occasionally hold some up and show those to you. So if that works well, or if it doesn't work well, please let us know in the chat. So what are succulents? Succulents are drought-resistant plants, you probably realize that have adapted to dry, arid environments. They store their water in their leaves, stems, and roots, and it causes them to look fleshy. When I think of that, I think of an aloe. It looks very thick and fleshy. What are the benefits of succulents? Why grow them? They're really great for the person who travels frequently, or if you work a lot and you just can't spend a lot of time on your plants, this is a great one for you. They thrive on neglect, meaning they don't need much water or hands-on daily care. In fact, too much love, too much care will kill them. Watering them too much, doting on them too much is actually what you don't want to do. Succulents, like other houseplants, improve the indoor air and mental well-being. We all know this. If we've gardened, we know. And some succulents, like aloe, have medicinal properties. So how do we care for succulents? First off is you have to grow them in the proper soil. Grow them in some pre-bagged succulent mix from a store or plant nursery, or you can make your own mix with 1 part houseplant mix and 1 to 2 parts of coarse sand, perlite, pumice, or fine gravel. And this is very important. You don't want to go just buy an indoor mix or a houseplant mix and put your succulents in there. It's going to be too heavy. You want something that's going to drain really, really well. If you want it to be foolproof, go ahead and buy the pre-bagged succulent mix. If you are a little more of a seasoned gardener and you're confident in your skills, go ahead and mix that up yourself. It's really not difficult at all. Just get a couple ingredients and you'll probably save some money in the process. So lighting. Succulents need very little water or fertilizer, but they need lots of light, at least 6 hours of direct sunlight if they're indoors. Artificial grow lights can be used. You want to rotate those plants to prevent lopsided growth. A lot of times you'll get them growing. It's called phototropism. It's growing toward the light and you get a slanted plant. You just want to turn it around just like you would any house plant. Water, they typically need to be watered weekly during the spring and fall, and approximately every 2 to 3 weeks during fall and winter. Now, this is very nuanced. It'll depend on your own indoor home environment and lighting and humidity in your house, but you'll get to know. You want the water you want to thoroughly water it. So mistake I see people make is they water with just a little tiny, can with just a few little drops, and then that's it, and they go back and do it a couple weeks later. You really want to drench that root ball and let everything drain out the bottom. So when I say get that soil wet, you get that soil wet, but you're watching all of it go right out the bottom too. Then you can put it back in its place and then leave it alone for 2, 3 weeks, depending on the season. In the wintertime, often just leave it alone. It'll be happier for it. Never let it sit in a saucer of water or sit in waterlogged soil. And like I said, it won't be waterlogged if you let everything drain out with that nice, well-draining soil and then put it back in its place. Okay, so container for succulents, you can get very creative and have a lot of fun with these. Not that you can't with other houseplants, but because they don't need so much water, you really don't have to worry so much about those roots and how far they go down. So I just love these two examples here, taking this old typewriter and using it as a vessel as well as this teacup. Really, if you go online and search containers for succulents or succulent containers, you're going to find an endless array of planters. I see people use old red wagons and just anything you can imagine. Anything that's old can be made new again. You just want to make sure that you have drainage holes. If you don't have drainage holes, use a little cache pot. So say you have it planted in a little plastic nursery pot and you stick that down in something more decorative. Say maybe you can't drill a hole in your typewriter or whatever strange thing you want to plant it in. It always has to drain. Nice thing about this is humidity. Most houseplants we grow, they need a lot of humidity. We turn on our humidifiers on them in the winter if we're really that type of extra special plant parent. For these though, they like that dry indoor air. So if it's really dry in your house, they're going to be happy. They don't want to be in a muggy environment. Warmer days and cooler nights are preferred, so they thrive in those indoor conditions. It's rare for indoor conditions to be too dry for succulents, which is a nice thing. So as far as fertilizing, providing an all-purpose or succulent-specific fertilizer is the way to go. When you're doing research and looking at individual plant needs for what type of fertilizer they want, some will say use a succulent fertilizer. Some will say use a 10-10-10. Some will say use an all-purpose. What I have found across the board is that it's pretty much all the same. You can use one that's specific to succulents, or you could use just a regular all-purpose fertilizer. You might want to dilute it a little bit, like half or a quarter of the rate listed on the link, and then just fertilize just during those growing months. These are not heavy flowering plants. They may flower, but they are not heavy feeders like our petunias and things like that we grow. So they do not need much fertilizer. Air circulation is a must. Moving air really helps to dry the soils and lower the humidity. I actually just had a customer email me before we came to this webinar about her soil staying really wet, and she was putting it outside to try to dry it out. You don't want a muggy, waterlogged environment. So having a fan around will really help if you don't have good air circulation in your house. As far as planting and repotting succulents, they don't need to be repotted that often because they're typically slow growers. They don't have huge root systems most often, so you don't want to put them in an overly large container. They like to be sort of pot bound. They're not high maintenance in that regard. Your house plants, when they start to, they'll grow rapidly and they'll start to get the roots coming out the bottom. You're not going to see that very often with your succulents. Handle them carefully. Remove the soil from the root ball whenever you plant it. So when you take out a plant and you want to repot it, you want to shake off or scratch off that soil that's on the root ball and put fresh there. So there are relatively few pests and issues. Most problems with succulents and cacti have to do with overwatering. People give them too much water. Even when you're giving them way less water than you would your normal houseplants, you're probably still possibly overwatering, or insufficient light. So there are so many different types of houseplants. You just can't imagine. There's something for everyone. 60 plant families and thousands of hybrid cultivars. If you just take a look at these pictures, you can just see this is just a mere sampling. I mentioned jade, haworthia, aloe, crassula, echeveria, kalanchoe. Down here, I don't have the word listed, but those are lithops, those little living stones, living rocks. They come in all kinds of colors, and they talk about a succulent that thrives on neglect. This one does not want you messing with it. Put it in some bright light and you're good to go. So I decided to go over approximately 10 popular indoor succulents. Now, this is by no means a list of the only succulents you should grow indoors. These are ones that I see typically offered around, ones that I typically buy, and I have experience with for the most part, and find that they do well. So this is a beautiful, beautiful group of succulents, lovely foliage in a rosette shape. And I find that, most people love this sort of pattern. It looks nice when you have them in clusters or just as an accent with other things. They're native to semi-desert areas of Mexico, Central America, and Northwestern South America. Most of them stay small. We do have some that are big. I've got one right here. It's really nice. I wonder if you can see it. Is that enough light, Lisa, or is it going to be too dark? Okay, too dark. I'll have to show later. Okay, she'll spotlight it after. They come in many different colors, which I love too. We have blue, gray silver, green, pink, purple lavender, red burgundy, variegated, and even white. So the sky is the limit as far as making a really nice container out of those. When you water them, water the soil. Don't pour on top of the rosette or let water sit on that rosette center because it's just going to rot it. It does not want to be wet. It wants its root ball saturated and it wants to drain. Something you can do to keep this looking healthy too is to remove those bottom stems. Usually they start to kind of die out at the very bottom, and you might have this really healthy looking plant on top with some dead drying leaves on the bottom. I just go through and groom it, and when I pull them apart, I don't just yank that dead leaf off of the center. I will kind of hold a grip on the plant and then tug it so I'm not just ripping it all the way out because they're kind of delicate in that way. If the plant becomes like a tufted stem, meaning it's got like this really long stem and this big rosette at the top, you can just cut it off, behead it, they call it, and replant it, and it'll grow new roots. I want to go over the difference between Echeveria, hen and chicks, and sedums because people get those mixed up pretty often. Hens and chicks refers to the sempervivum species, and that's in this upper right corner, and those are beautiful. I'm sure you've probably seen the varieties of chick charms, they call them, the patented different colors of hens and chicks. They're great, but they're not Echeveria. That you can see that there's a similarity. So below that top right picture, we have Echeveria, and there's a subtle difference, but there is a difference. The hens and chicks refer to the fact that there are those little chicks, plantlets that are coming off the main plant, whereas Echeveria doesn't really have that. It's got beautiful foliage. Most stay small, reaching only a couple of inches across, as we mentioned. Huge variety. And then the sedums, which is the bottom left here, they also have leaves arranged in a rosette shape, and they range from just a few inches to 3 feet tall, but they can also be trailing. You've probably seen trailing sedums coming out of planters. So we have aloe, native to the Arabian Peninsula. You always want the soil to dry out completely between your waterings. Make sure your container has drainage holes. Don't stick it in a pot, even if it's just rocks. Don't stick it in there with no drainage holes. It's going to produce offset, so you want to propagate it by divisions, which means once you get that little pup at the base of it, you can just rip it off and replant it. As many people already know, aloe is used medicinally for sunburns, minor cuts, and abrasions. Some people ingest it. I wouldn't do so without, first maybe consulting your doctor about how sensitive you may be to that, but you'll see aloe vera leaves just at the grocery store these days in the produce section. People will juice them and do different things with them. So jade, native to Southern Africa. The Khoi and other Africans use the roots for food, grated and cooked and eaten with thick milk. They also use the leaves for medicinal purposes. Now, this was very interesting to me because I never had any idea that jade was used for food or could be used for food. I don't think I would do so without, an expert in that helping me. I wouldn't just go pull out a jade root and try to eat it, but very interesting that this is something that's used by other cultures. Does very well in containers, slow growing, tolerates neglect like most of these do. It likes the warm, dry environment of most homes, likes bright, indirect light. And you'll see in that bottom picture, It's flowering. Now yours will probably not flower indoors. It's flowering because it's been put outside and it's getting that outdoor light and probably has been fertilized as well. It's not typical, but it can happen. Kalanchoe, we see these all the time around the holidays and the winter days. Native to Madagascar, it's got those dark green, thick scallop leaves and the small four-petaled flowers. They come in red, magenta, yellow, pink, orange, yellow, and white. They like bright indoor light, just like our other succulents. Don't want to be overwatered. Fertilize with regular houseplant fertilizer. They do like the cooler night temperatures. So if you've got a really beautiful blooming kalanchoe and you want that flower to last longer, put it in a cool night, in the cool night air. Now I don't mean put it out when it's a frost. I don't mean put it out, in the winter time. I just mean put it in a cooler area of your home if you have it. And it's possible to rebloom your kalanchoe. One of the things that I had always found disappointing with these plants is they bloom so beautifully and then they're done. They're kind of just done and you're just left with this little green plant not doing anything. But you can do some things to kind of force that like you do with poinsettias. So long nights and short days will cause a bloom. Move it to a room with natural light only. And then 6 weeks of long nights and natural shorter day lengths between October and March, just like with your poinsettias, will allow the plant to set more flower buds. So just as long as you're keeping it in regular natural light as opposed to artificial, it will take the cue from the sun and from nature. So Sansevieria, the mother-in-law's tongue, the snake plant, everybody knows these. There's an infinite amount of varieties, it seems, native to Africa, Southern Asia, and Madagascar. This is one that can survive in low light, and lots of people tell me that they do put theirs, my mother-in-law's tongue, it survives in the dark. It's doing well, it gets no light. It will survive, but it's really going to thrive if you put it in bright and direct light. It wants that bright and direct light and honestly loves to go outside in the summer. And I honestly recommend most people put most of their plants outside because it gives them such a boost. And as you've probably heard me mention, if you've attended a Houseplant Academy before, you don't want to just take your houseplant and just shove it outside in the sun. Like say it's a cactus or say it's a snake plant. Oh, it likes full sun. Let's go put it on the south side of the house. No. You want to harden it off. You want to put it in the shade first. Give it a little time to get used to that. Move it to partial sun. Then just kind of gradually get it up to that point because it's not used to that light. It'll burn its leaves. Don't overwater it. It likes to be root bound. So, I've got one right now that's indoors. I haven't moved it outdoors yet. And it's definitely root bound. I mean, the roots have like pulled away from the sides of the clay pot, but it's still kicking and it's happy. And I will repot it this season, but it's not a make or break situation. It's not going to die because of that. I fertilize during the growing season with the all-purpose fertilizer and it blooms outdoors. That's another really lovely thing. Mine always bloom when I put them outdoors in the summertime. Very, very nicely. Hayworthia, these are so cute. They come in all kinds of little stripes and designs and patterns. They're closely related to aloes. So if you look at that and think it's an aloe, you're not too far off. It's in the aloe family, but it is different. That's got that clumping growth habit. It's usually small, only 2 to 12 inches, and 12 inches would be at the extreme end of its growth. We're talking a really mature plant there. Greens, reds, browns to near black, which are really cool. The leaves can be thick and smooth, or they can be covered in stripes or tubercles, and those are those small wart-like or bumpy protrusions. Or they can even be transparent. I've seen Hayworthias. Actually, when I was at the nursery yesterday, I saw some transparent Hayworthias, and those are really interesting to look at. Non-toxic to pets and humans. So if you've got an animal at home that likes to tear up your plants and you're worried about them getting poisoned, don't worry. My one cat has ripped this one out a few times, and no worries for death. It can tolerate low light conditions, unlike many other succulent plants. So I had mentioned that the snake plant, mother-in-law's tongue, can tolerate low light. Most of them really can't. They really do need that bright light if you want to keep them going, perpetually. They'll do best in an east or west facing window with a few hours of direct sunlight and then bright sunlight for the rest of the day. A lot of times if people want to put them in a south facing window a few feet away from that window or have maybe a sheer curtain so it's not just the blazing sun, they'll do well in that too. String of pearls, these are so nice to look at. Native to South Africa, these are very popular in hanging baskets. The leaves are the size and shape of small peas. They have trailing stems that can grow up to 3 feet long. They want bright light, infrequent watering, and well-draining soil, just like all of our succulents we're talking about. They really do better in shallow containers. They don't want to go in a deep container. This one up here on the top picture looks really pretty, but that might be a little too deep, because if you ever were to pull up that plant and look at the roots, they're going to be very shallow. And the larger the pot, the wetter it's going to stay, and the more likely it could get root rot. Clay containers are better than plastic or ceramic because they allow that evaporation through the sides, which allows the soil to dry more quickly. Repot every year or two, fertilize lightly in the growing season, just like the other plants. Leaves are slightly toxic, so they're not fatal if you ingest them, but they could cause some problems. You're not going to probably see this flower indoors unless you are on a really serious regimen with the light and the fertilizer. This one down here, it's flowering because it's outdoors and it's probably a mature plant, but I take that back. I was going to say I'd never seen one flower, but I think I have been to a plant nursery where they've had them hanging in there flowering because they're getting, just amazing light in the greenhouse. String of hearts, I brought one of these variegated ones with me today. I actually have just a non-variegated one upstairs in my office, but it's so long. I mean, I don't know how many feet long that thing is. Could be 6 feet. I don't know. It's so long that if I try to pick it up, it's so like wound around the walls of my cubicle. I don't even want to try to undo it. And I say that to say it's a really fun, impressive plant to get going. Native to Southern Africa, tender, succulent, evergreen perennial that has trailing branches that resemble, because it can make little beads. The beads, quote beads, are actually little, what's the word? It's escaping me. Tubers. There we go. They're little aerial tubers or tubercles, and they will form on the stems between the leaves. So you're going to have heart-shaped leaves that are dark green and etched with silver on the upper surface and purple on the underside. Monitor for aphids, mealybugs, and scale, as I mentioned here. Overwatering can cause root rot. Underwatering can cause shriveled leaves. Don't let that intimidate you, though. Plants are nuanced. You kind of already know that you have to find that sweet spot, but I have found that with the string of hearts, it's not been that difficult to find it. West or east facing window, fertilize just during the growing season, allow that winter rest for all these plants, and it likes to be crowded in its pot. Like a lot of these succulents, it's not going to be demanding and start wilting. I've got a peace lily at home that is so demanding. It's still green and still living well, but as soon as it gets dry or it wants to be repotted, it's just, collapses. It lets you know immediately. Not so with succulents. They like to be in their homes. And so related to the string of pearls is the string of bananas and string of dolphins. You can look over here. The far right picture is string of bananas. And in the middle is the string of dolphins. They're like little dolphin shapes. They're so cute. And I saw these yesterday when I was shopping. They also have, I think, string of watermelons. And they're probably strings of other things too, but they're really cute. I just wanted you guys to see the variety that you can get and how fun they can be. So propagating, how you propagate these really depends on the individual plant. So some of them do best with different methods. Offsets and divisions, if your succulent produces clusters of rosettes or pups, think of an aloe plant. It kind of makes like an extra little baby side plant, or it has runners that readily root and grow. It's a good candidate for this method. Just pull them off, like I said, and put them in a new pot with well-draining soil, and the roots will establish. Stem cuttings, remove a section of the stem 3 to 6 inches long, remove the leaves from the lower half of the stem, and allow that cut in to dry and callus over by laying it on a tray or plate. And you've probably seen this. I don't know, maybe if you've looked in a gardening magazine or if you've been to a nursery and you saw a lot of those leaves just laying flat, and you're wondering, why are they not, buried in the soil? Why are they not planted? That's because they are getting that callus. It helps prevent root rot. Once they get those roots, you just place them in the succulent mix and allow the roots to develop some more. Put in a container. Rooting hormone can be used, but it's usually not necessary. Succulents root very, very easily. I have so many succulents that I purchase and I get because I decorate with them in the fall and winter. I put them on pumpkins and things. And then when I take them off or pieces fall off, it'll look like a dead leaf, and then all of a sudden I've got roots, and it really will kind of amaze you probably how well they will proliferate. And then leaf cuttings, you want to cleanly remove an entire leaf. So this picture up here in the top left, you'll see one's an entire leaf and one's just a partial leaf. You don't want that partial one because that partial one's not going to have the part of the meristem that it needs to make roots. You want the entire one. lay it on slightly damp succulent mix, using a spray bottle to keep it damp but not wet, because remember, these are arid loving plants. They don't want to be soaking. New roots and leaves or rosettes will form in several weeks, so just be patient. It might just lay there and look dead, but if you've got it under the right light, I promise you'll see some roots. So I said that I do a lot of decorating and crafting with succulents. This picture on the left of this pumpkin is actually the one that inspired me many years ago to start decorating pumpkins. That's really my thing in the fall. I love doing this. I saw this in Better Homes and Gardens, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to do that because I love pumpkins anyway. And so I buy a lot of bulk succulents and do this, basically make this kind of craft. I have made a succulent wreath before. I find that a lot more labor intensive. I'm not a super patient person, and if you like those really what is it, those finite little detailed things, this was probably for you, but it takes a lot of succulents to cover a wreath. Let me tell you, you can get away with just a handful or an armful for your pumpkin, but to cover a wreath, you got to be invested. But they're beautiful. And if you see them for sale and they're really expensive, that's why, because it takes a lot. You can use picture frames. You can take a picture frame and you can find, of course, directions on how to do these things online very easily. It's very common these days, but they get the mesh to keep the soil in, and they put them through a little wire and have it coming out. I have one of these on my deck for an entire season and it's still living. I just put it on the south side of my house and they keep coming back and I keep putting it out. So no harm, no foul. Succulent ball is also fun to make, but again, when you're trying to cover a circular or wreath-like shape, you're invested. It's a lot of succulent, it's a lot of time. So moving on to cacti. Cacti, I find there's usually a group of people who love cacti, and that's kind of it. Most people think they're cool, but they're not really into them because, I mean, look at them. You try to touch that thing, you're going to hurt yourself. You bump against it, whatever. Please know, though, there are plenty of cacti that are soft, that don't have those thorns, and I'm going to show you some today. I've got some here for people who are with us, and Lisa will spotlight those at the end. So all cacti are considered succulents, but not all succulents are considered cacti, obviously, as we've seen. They're their own botanical family, whereas succulents can go into many different plant families. They generally have few or no leaves. They often have needle-like spines. They have indentions along the stems from which those spines grow, mostly native to the Americas, and they require 8+ hours of sunlight per day. So they typically need even a little bit more than your succulents, say good, regular succulents. They thrive on the neglect. They're great for the traveling person. If you want to improve your indoor air and mental well-being, they're just beautiful to look at. So how to care for cacti. Very similar to just your run-of-the-mill succulent. You want fast draining soil media. Do not go buy houseplant mix for this because that's not what you want. You want it to say succulent mix, or you want to mix your houseplant mix with some perlite or pumice or something like that. That's going to make it very gritty. Bright sunlight up to 12 hours per day. It may need weekly water in the summer because you'll see most of the cacti are bigger, they're fleshier, they're, I don't want to say juicier, but they have more surface where they need more water in them, but they don't want to be wet. Maybe only every 4 to 6 weeks in winter. And it really kind of depends on where you live and your climate. That even affects how you water them indoors. I was talking to Matt yesterday at the Petal and Pond, who was so nice to let me borrow all these plants that we see here today. And he tells me here in Georgia, he doesn't water his cacti at all over the winter. He just leaves them dry, no water. And I was kind of surprised at that. He said, nope, no water. I know for mine indoors, I feel like I have to do something. So I'll put some water in them at least once a month or when I think about it. But he said, nope, you're good to go as long as they've been well watered in the summertime. They're fine, especially if they're in a low light area. They're not going to be needing as much water. Fertilized 2 to 3 times during the growing season with all-purpose fertilizer, just like another succulent. They need those containers with a drainage hole. Clay really is best. I mean, people grow them in other things besides clay, but clay is really going to be your friend when it comes to these plants that like to have, their soil to completely dry between waterings. They like low humidity, so your dry indoor air temperature is fine. Water them at soil level, drench that soil, and allow it just to drip out. And hopefully you know what I mean when I say that. I was thinking I should have put a little video of me doing this, but you just want to take it. You don't want to pour the water on the cactus or on your succulent. You're pouring it right on that soil. You let it all run out. Once it's done running out, then you can plop it back in its pot. Maybe every 4 to 6 weeks in wintertime if you choose to water in winter. So bunny ears cactus, these are really cute, native to northern Mexico and the Arizona desert region. They're slow growing and they'll reach 2 to 3 feet tall as a mature plant. Now, unless you go buy one that's pretty big, it's probably going to take forever to grow that large in your home here in Georgia. Grow in the cacti and succulent soil, low humidity. It likes cooler temperatures and very little water during the wintertime. So most people keep their house, I don't know, 70 or 68. If you have a place in your house that's a little cooler than that, it'll be happy with that. They like to be propagated by breaking off the pads in the spring and rooting them in some well-drained soil. So that really just amounts to grabbing one of those pads from the side, an offshoot, and just breaking it off and putting it in there. And I have one here, wear protective gloves when handling. I always wear gloves when I handle these things. So I guess I'm kind of a baby. I don't know. I can't get a really good grip on something with spikes or thorns. But I was talking to Matt yesterday and he deals with cacti all day and he says he rarely wears any gloves. And so, okay, that's for you. Maybe if your hands are really calloused up, you are used to that. You just develop a tolerance, I'm sure, but I'm not there yet. So the star cactus, I really like this one because it does not hurt at all. You can grip this thing with your bare hands and it's very soft and smooth. Native to the Southwest, Texas, North America. It's listed as endangered. And so it's very important that wherever you're purchasing this cactus, it's not been wild collected. And anything verified, when you buy from a nursery or you buy from a store, typically those are coming from like a big vendor or retailer like Acosta Farms or somebody who is propagating those responsibly. In reading and kind of learning about how to source some of these things, you don't want to just necessarily go buy it off the internet if it's an endangered plant because you don't know where the person got that. They could be wild collecting it, poaching it, which is illegal, and then reselling it. You don't really want to support that. So I got one of these just last week at Walmart, of all things. They have a Costa Farms section with their little rare cacti, and I think it was $8.96 exactly. So it didn't break the bank, and it's nice because it's soft. I don't have to worry about sticking myself or bumping into it. They stay small. They bloom during the spring and summer, and their flowers open during the day and close at night. Very common for them to bloom. They need warm temperatures and lots of bright sunlight to bloom. Non-toxic, so don't have to worry about your pets doing that. Low nitrogen cactus fertilizer, and use neem oil to treat for mealybugs, scale insects, and spider mites. So this is one that comes, I've got some with me today for people to look at. It's got extra bumps on it or tubercles and extra white and just lots of different varieties of this. So I really like this rat tail cactus. I don't love the name, but I think it's so cute. I really like in this bottom picture how someone put it on a head planter. It looks like she's got a wild windblown hair. Medusa, exactly. Yep, native to Mexico, likes bright, indirect light, water when the soil is completely dry and allow it to drain, 3 to 6 feet at maturity. Loves warm temperatures and flowers beautifully in the spring. So it's going to want those reduced water and cooler temps in winter to encourage blooms in spring. And you probably know this if you're a gardener or if you have any experience with any house plants, you know that they kind of need to go through that simulated winter, even if they're indoors, to put out those blooms and to know when to change. Feed sparingly, propagate by seeds or cuttings. You've got to be a really, really patient person to propagate cacti by seeds. If that's your thing, I say that's awesome. I don't have the patience for that, really. Maybe if I was a grower or had my own greenhouse, but I like something. I'm more an instant gratification person. Non-toxic to humans and pets, but it can cause skin irritation. This is another nice one that will not hurt you. I've got a couple of these with us today. The feather cactus, you feel it, grab it. It's very soft. It forms a low, dense mound covered in those white feathery spines. And they're arranged like segments of a bird's feather. And I think it's really cool because those feathers are there to protect the plants against the harsh desert sun. So they do serve a purpose. They grow in full sun or bright indirect light, water sparingly, fertilize sparingly, and they will bloom. Creamy white or pale pink flowers, and they have a scent. So that's really nice too. Something that you may not think about it. It's probably obvious when you do think about it, but when I was researching all these different cacti, they really play an important role in pollination in the desert and where they are. I mean, they have to have pollination there just like we do, in our four seasons types of climates. So most, if not all, of these cacti and succulents do produce flowers, and lots of different pollinators rely on them. So I thought that was pretty interesting. They do play a vital role in their ecosystem, just like our perennials and natives. The moon cactus, Gymnocalcii, Caliceum. This is actually not a natural cactus. It is two cacti that are grafted together. So that top one that's red like that, it's actually considered an albino. And the only reason it can survive is because it's grafted to that bottom green part. It lasts maybe 2 to 3 years. I'm sure you've seen these at Walmart and Lowe's and Home Depot. They always have them in a range of colors. And my kids have liked them. They bought them, but they're only known to live 2 to 3 years because they're once that top albino part grows away from that bottom rooted part, it has no way of photosynthesizing. And I read that if you want to keep it going, if you want it to continue living, you can regraft it onto another cactus. And I said, I don't think so. Like, I'm good. We don't have to do that. But it is really cute, very nice looking. Bright indirect light, bright neon color, don't always bloom. Sometimes they do. It was saying, though, that when you look for these, make sure they're growing upright. They don't have a lot of splits. Look for a really healthy looking plant to start with, and it'll last longer than just one that may look a little beat up, which probably goes for most plants, but more so with this one because it is grafted. Bishop's cap, this one I thought was such a cool example because they're not typically this large. And I think I had, I thought I grabbed a bishop's cap. Maybe I didn't. But this one here in the picture is 83 years old. It's had 3 different owners. And so that's why it's so tall. They're normally not that large. Silvery, they won't hurt your fingers. You can grip it and grab it, and it's not going to produce thorns sticking your skin. That likes to be dry in the winter. Do not water in the winter at all. So if some of you are thinking, that might be a plant for me because I really don't have to do much with it. It likes fertilizer, mildly in the growing season. Full sun to light shade, well-drained soil. And this is one that received the Royal Horticultural Society Award of Garden Merit because it is so easy to grow. Of many of the different types of cacti, this one was recognized as being one that people have a lot of luck with. As you can see, this one lasted 83 years. So it's not one that you're going to easily kill as long as you follow those basic principles of cacti care. San Pedro, I learned a lot about this one. Matt at Puddle and Pond, actually, he's very into selling and growing these cacti. He's a cacti expert. And he told me to look at this and feature this in the presentation because it's very popular as a houseplant these days. And looking into it, it's one that people are just kind of rabid about, like propagating it and growing and selling. And when they get them in stock, they sell right out. If you do any research online about the San Pedro, you'll see that it's a very hot houseplant. It's really nice, tall, columnar, bluish green, those fleshy stems with small clusters of spines, slow growing indoors, likes the full sun, south facing window, well-draining soil, all of that. And then something else that I read that it contains a hallucinogen. So I thought, oh, well, that must be why it's so popular. But then when I was reading more, most of the growers were saying that's really not the thing. It's an endangered, kind of rare plant that people who are houseplant fanatics are trying to revive and protect and grow. It's actually not in the house plant, or I would say the hobbyist community. They're not really getting it for that. There are a lot of people who are just obsessed with plants and they get on these cacti kicks, and this is one that's hot. I was reading that one grower, a guy who propagates them and sells them, he says that when people contact them because they want to use it for that, he turns them down. He's like, I'm not getting involved in that. We're not doing that. And strangely enough, it's legal in Colorado to use these for hallucinogenic purposes. So hey, if you want to give it a whirl, you heard it here first. We don't endorse that at Extension. It's just sharing information. Okay, so the golden barrel cactus, native to North America, grows up to 3.5 feet tall in ideal conditions. This one you will need a glove, and Matt was telling me he doesn't even put a glove on to handle these, but whatever. This I would put on a leather glove. Well-draining soil, sparse watering during the growing season, no water in the winter, full sun, south-facing window is ideal. It can bloom, but they don't usually bloom until they're 15 years old. So if you buy one and you've had it for a few years or it's big and you think, oh, I must not be doing it right. Well, it's probably just not mature enough. It likes a phosphorus-rich fertilizer. That is one thing I read that was specific to this golden barrel cactus, is it likes a phosphorus-rich fertilizer during the growing season. Obviously, rarely needs pruning because how are you going to prune it that much? Move it outdoors when the night temperatures are above 65. So I know I have broken some of the laws and moved a lot of my houseplants outside already, even though we're having cool night temperatures, but I have it's a microclimate. So I've got it underneath the deck on my basement patio. It's very kind of closed in. and protected and insulated, if you will, I definitely would not do that with something like this. This is not going to tolerate that. You know, my pothos and my other things that I have in that kind of shielded, insulated environment will be fine because I've done it every year, but this, you don't want to do that. And bring it indoors if it's wet. Also, you know, not something I ever really have to do is worry about going and getting my other succulents that I have outside and bringing them in when we have a lot of rain because they're going to drain. They're in that light. It gets so hot here, but this is one that you want to bring in. So where to buy? There's just an infinite number of places. Local plant nurseries like Pike, Petal and Pond, My Secret Garden, Growers Outlet, all the ones you know and love. Big box stores like Lowe's, Home Depot, and Walmart. Online vendors. Mountain Crest Gardens is one. You know, we don't endorse anything in particular here at Extension. These are just ones that I'm sharing with you. I have personally ordered from Mountain Crest succulent box. And then local plant sales. Do not miss these. The GCMGA plant sales coming up on the 26th. It's in the Lilburn Library, right, Lisa? Lilburn Library, yes. So they'll have. I've bought succulents there before. Gwinnett Tech has a plant sale coming up this week, or not this week, this month, and then the Southeast Plant Show, which I mentioned in a previous slide in June. You will find just an amazing variety. So they're everywhere. And I wanted to highlight these. These were not one of my top grown indoors, but these are ones I buy every year because I just think they are so magical looking, and I love when I'm putting together my pumpkins or other decor. I love to include these because they are so interesting. People always notice them. This is Aeonium Black Desert, Aeonium Pink Witch, and these are green ovia, and they look like actual roses, but they're succulents. And so those are green in the bottom, and that's like a pink one at the top. And when I'm putting something together and I include one of these, it just really makes it. And they're really not that expensive. If you do something like this, if you buy it in the summer or fall, when it's part of a larger succulent arrangement, like at Lowe's or Home Depot or wherever you get your plants, and you save it, that's when you kind of get the best deal, because when they're all grouped into one big planter and then you save it and then you behead it and use it for something else, it'll keep growing. Okay, so that is all I have as far as my presentation. And then Lisa is going to spotlight some of the plants that I brought here today. And then if anybody has any questions, either online or in person, just put them in the chat or let us know. And then for those of you who are here in person, I do have succulents to give you. So I've got a lot of my leftover succulents that I beheaded after I used them for my pumpkins last year, and they grew new rosettes. And it's just to show you how they will come back. And even if you cut them off and stick them on a pumpkin for 3 months, they're still growing. So you will get to enjoy that. So let's see if we have any questions in the chat. Okay, so everybody's muted. A copy of the presentation. So we do, this will be on the Metro Master Gardener YouTube channel, and that will be in a couple of days after we edit it. And then Christmas cacti, they're actually a succulent. All cacti are succulents, just so all succulents are not cacti. Let's see. And a copy of the slides, your link didn't work. Okay, so if anybody had trouble viewing or wants to view this again or see the different things, it's all going to be on our Metro Master Gardener YouTube channel. Cleaning air, the study that was released about plants not being able to absorb as much carbon. So I saw something about that. In the chat, she says cleaning air and plants that couldn't absorb as much carbon. A lot of it has to do with, this was a learning curve for me too, most of the carbon is absorbed through the soil and the roots, not through like the leaves of the plant. And so the bigger root system and the more soil that it has, the more carbon is absorbed. Anything to do with microplastics, I don't know. I'm not an expert in microplastics or topsoil collapse. I do know that microplastics are present in pretty much everything, but I'm not sure that has I'm really not sure. I would say look to somewhere else for that. For as far as caring for a Christmas cactus, I believe I covered that in my houseplants for the holidays presentation. And so if you go to the Metro Master Gardener YouTube channel, that video is up there, and I go all into how to care for a Christmas cactus. Or you can always call or email us here at Extension, and we can answer any questions you have. Using distilled water. Actually, I have not used distilled water for my succulents at home. You can, if you find that you have particularly hard water, or there's something about your water that is fussy that your plants don't like, then by all means use distilled, or you can just fill up a jug and let it sit out overnight, and the chlorine will evaporate. So, okay. So here we'll have Lisa.
What do you have to stop sharing?
Okay, where, stop share. Okay. Okay. All right. So you can show them my variegated string of hearts. There we go. It's so cute. You want to zoom in on those little hearts. And then this tray over here behind that, these are all plants that I beheaded at one point. And when I say behead, I mean I cut off the rosettes and they were just plain leaves. And then I kept them in the light over the winter time and now they've grown new rosettes. So I'm going to be giving those out to people here. This one over here is called the common name booby cactus. And you can kind of see why it's very popular these days. Lisa had to buy one. And then we have just a variety of succulents. They all go really well together when you put different textures and colors and things. We have a Hayworthia over here related to the aloes. This is also a Hayworthia, which, looks kind of shorter and chubbier, but it is in that same family and it's flowering. It's got cute little flowers on it. This is one of those grafted cacti that's about to bloom. Those two big, like bulbous things you see on top, those are actually buds of a flower bloom that it's going to put out. And then we have this Echeveria that is about to bloom as well. Yeah, we'll knock it over, but they're so cute when they bloom. And then this little guy looks like he belongs in a Barbie dream house because he's so small in this little miniature planter. He's a Cimpressula, one that I had not heard of, but I got yesterday because it was so cute and so interesting. It's kind of almost like a charcoal color. And here we have a type of aloe, a variegated aloe. And this is one of those variegated star cacti I was telling you about. So you can feel that. It's not going to hurt you. It's very soft. More Hayworthia here. Those are also very soft to feel. They're not going to spike you. And feather cactus, you can touch those and they're not going to cause you any problem. There's another Echeveria, different colors. And then this cute little pink one. So you'll find such a variety of shapes and sizes and colors in these plants and definitely give them a try. Does anybody here in person have a question for us? I guess I just covered everything so well and nobody has a question.
You said that we can do a mixture of succulent and sand. Would they grow also on rocks, like little pebbles?
They do need like a little bit of soil. So like I'm thinking in my head of like hens and chicks, you probably have grown those or seen those outside and they grow in just like the tiniest, teeniest bit of soil, like they'll grow in rocks, but they do need just a little bit of grit for those roots to attach to. So if you do want to make your own soil, I wouldn't mix sand with succulent soil. I would take like regular indoor houseplant mix and mix that with sand or perlite or pumice. Because if you already have succulent soil, you can just plant it as is in that. It is more expensive than regular. It is cheaper in the long run just to buy a big bag of perlite, which I've done, and mix that half and half. It's just really your own personal preference. Any other questions we might have? Okay, so I'd like to encourage everybody to please register for. You can do that by going online to our extension website and doing that, or you can email Laura Tierney. Let's see, will the questions be a part of the recording on YouTube? They will, right, Lisa? Questions? Yeah, because it's still, yeah, the questions will be a part of that for sure. And like I said, just register for the upcoming ones. Our next one will be on May 8th on gardening with moss, and then we take off a little summer break, and then August we're back for a book club review, and then September I plan to go right back into the typical traditional Houseplant Academy where we're going over different types of houseplant care and adding on to what we already covered and learned before. And then if people like or are interested in the book club review, we'll add that on as something else we do. The name of the book someone asked on here is Doug Tallamy's new book, How Can I Help? Saving Nature with Your Own Backyard. So it's really a book about how everybody, even with a suburban lot or an apartment or wherever you live, you don't have to live in the country to save nature. There's something that we can all do to help conservation, eco-conservation. And I thought it would be particularly interesting to all of us as gardeners and people who plant. And so if we end up liking that, I will continue that with other books. If not, we'll just stick to the traditional Houseplant Academy. So, and if anybody here has an idea for a topic you'd like me to cover, please email me, chat it, let me know. I will definitely take that into consideration. I love getting ideas from people, what they want to see. Really, any feedback you want to give or any book you want to recommend is very welcome. So thank you very much for joining me today. If that's it. All right. Thank you. Have a good spring break. Rest of it.
Yeah.